right now as well.
Okay, thank you. All right. It is the Monday, April 19th, 2021 regular school board meeting. It is 6:04 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. We will take roll call beginning with Mr. Bryant.
Here.
Ms. Buck.
Here.
Mr. Derricks.
Here.
Ms. Ostendorf.
Here.
Ms. Tower.
Here.
Ms. Tift.
Here.
And chair is here. So all 7 board members are present along with Superintendent Anderson and several guests. So thank you for joining us. I'll ask you to stand as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. And thank you for your patience as we continue to work in our hybrid model. It's great to see people here in person and to see everyone here on our screens. So thank you for your patience as we figured out those technical difficulties as well. I have asked, Ms. Ostendorf has agreed to share our mission with us this evening.
The mission of the Red Wing Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students as they realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, and productive citizens.
Thank you. The agenda was in your board packet. Do I have any changes to the agenda or additions?
No changes.
Then I will look for a motion to approve as presented.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
Jim, Board Member Bryant, moves to approve.
I'll second.
Mr. Bryant, Board Member Bryant, motion made by Mr. Bryant and seconded by Ms. Tift. Any other discussion? All right, we'll take a roll call vote. This time we'll start with Ms. Ostendorf.
Aye.
Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Ms. Tift.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Mr. Derricks.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. So the agenda is as presented. The education plan is in our packet, and we'll be talking a little bit more about those strategic directions 1 and 4 later on in the agenda. The first item then would be recognitions and upcoming events. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share?
I'd like to recognize 2 individuals. The Red Wing High School speech team participated in the 1AA section finals recently. Rachel Dopkins earned a 5th place medal in dramatic interpretation, and Kirsten Peterson earned a 7th place ribbon in serious prose interpretation. So congratulations to them and everyone who participated in the event.
Thank you for sharing that. That's always awesome to hear. Holly, were you raising your hand? No. Any other recognitions or upcoming events?
I did have a question from up in the cities. Was there a walkout today? Did students participate in that?
Yes, there were about 70 to 100 students who participated in the walkout at 1 o'clock today.
Did everything go safe and well? And
yeah, I was out there, and so I saw most of the what happened outside. George didn't contact me later in the day with any concern, so I'm assuming everything went fine.
yes, as it was statewide. So way to go, kids, and working with your strengths.
My daughter participated in that today and was so excited and was really happy to be a part of that.
Yes, a lot of my students did too. So they were feeling pretty inspired.
All right, any other recognitions or upcoming events? Seeing none, the next item on our agenda is public comment. I have not received any public comment, nor has Superintendent Anderson. So we will move on to item number 4, which is return to school.
Shonda Jorgensen is available to answer questions as well, but I'll briefly go over the pertinent items in the return to school section. First of all, Lisa Stigurda updated the website with the latest COVID data. Just a reminder that every Monday we meet with the county, and so we get our latest information on Mondays. That's why we always have an updated, documented for this meeting. The recommendation tonight is to adopt a shortened quarantine. Once again, Shonda will be here to answer any questions. In March, there was discussion about the possibility of enacting a shortened quarantine for students like we do for staff members. At first, the COVID response team preferred staying with the current 14-day quarantine standard. However, after discussions with high school administration and myself, I think all of us kind of landed on that it would be more appropriate to go for a 10-day quarantine if there is a negative PCR test on or after the 8th day. Now this document, indicates the 5th day, the background sheet, but it should be the 8th day. We do have some additional information about quarantine standards that are included as an attachment. So that'll be the recommendation coming from me as well as others. But if I could go through the rest of this report first, and then we can follow up. The Minnesota Department of Health does recommend a learning model change if 5% of a school's population is positive or showing symptoms of COVID. Our COVID count is significantly less than that, so we have not had discussions about changing learning models. I know that there is another school district in the county that recently announced the 2-week distance learning for all of their grades. But that's a different school district. We have not had those discussions internally. So we're assuming that we'll stay with our current model, hopefully for the rest of the year, but we're continually monitoring that at least twice per week, or if there's a significant issue that comes up. There were multiple people who met on April 13th to discuss mitigation strategies at the high school. It was a really good discussion. Topics included quarantine rules, surface cleaning, one-way hallways, seating charts, desk removal, enforcement of the mask policy, lunchroom setup, and the coffee shop. So we reviewed a lot of those different areas. You may have heard from students that some adjustments have been made. For example, with the one-way hallways, with the amount of cleaning and disinfecting of desks. And again, this is just based on guidance from the state and or the CDC. And the COVID response team is very good at understanding the latest recommendations from the state. And we had a really good meeting on the 13th to see what we can do in terms of making sure the mitigation strategies are appropriate and enforced. One of the big issues that's come up recently is the enforcement of the mask policy. And so I know the high school has fully implemented the policy with some students who were refusing to wear masks during the school day. And so, I know they're trying to be as proactive as possible. Just a reminder, there are some students that have received an accommodation not to wear a mask. And so, when there is a concern, please take it to an administrator, and then the administrator will review and assess consequences as appropriate. So those are the main topics that are in the return to school report. Again, the issue that we'd like to change has to do with shortening the quarantine for students. And the recommendation is to change our quarantine standards so that we'd have a 10-day quarantine if there is a negative PCR test on or after the 8th day. Once again, Shonda is here to provide more information or to answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Bryant, you're in the queue, and then Ms. Ostendorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Why the 8-day? And I've been reading and seeing up to 5 to 7 days you should test, and you come back negative, you have to wait whatever until the results come back. I'm not sure why is 8 versus not 5 to 7?
Well, because we are doing a shortened quarantine and 10 days, if we have them test on the 5th day and then they're out for quarantine another 5 days, and then they might turn up positive in those 5 days. And so since we're just doing the 10-day, we figured on day 8 or later, just to show that in the next couple days when they come back to school, we know for sure that they're negative. It was kind of a compromise we came up with to make, to kind of mitigate some risks. If we have them test on day 5 and they turn up positive on day 9, we won't know that. But if we test on day 8, we're pretty sure that they're going to be negative. They're not going to develop symptoms, and they should be safe to come back to school. Is kind of how we figured that out.
So we're so 5 to 7 isn't considered, 8 is, and then that if you test back, you have to take your test on day 8, or do you get results by day 8?
No, you test on day 8. And so when we have discussions with students about short quarantining, we will provide them with the date that they can test or that we will accept a test result. So, you're quarantined today, 8 days from today, you can go and get a test. The test has to be dated on that date. Most people get it the next day. And so you'll know by the time you go back to school in 2 days that you're negative.
So it's on all cases, whether you are just close contact, casual contact. It's a 15 minutes criteria still being held.
The shortened quarantine is. Oh, sorry.
Let me finish. Thank you.
Sorry.
Well, I'm just curious. Other place I've been reading is 5 to 7, but we're going to 8 when somebody might be sitting in the same classroom with somebody for a short time while they're out for a minimum of 10 days, and if they test negative on day 8. So I'm just trying to grasp and understand why we're why we're looking at 8 instead of between 5 and 7.
It's something as we talked as a group.
I just have
what?
Go ahead.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. So as a compromise, that's kind of what the COVID team wants to do. We've always wanted to push for the 14-day. It's the safest. If we move to this 10-day, we'd like to see a negative test result closer to the time they come back. If they're out for 10 days, they test on day 5, they still have 5 days to develop symptoms or become or they could possibly be asymptomatic. They say on average it takes 5 to 7 to show symptoms or to build enough viral load to be able to register positive on a test. So day 8 is just as good as 5 to 7. So.
And Shonda, when you meet with students and you talk about that with them, that they can test on day 8, what if that's a Saturday or a Sunday? And will we be providing like local places for them to go, or is there a specific place that you'll want them to test at?
Well, for right now, Red Wing, you can test at Mayo, and I know they're open on Saturdays. I think they're open on Sundays. We can verify. So you will be able to test whatever day it is. And if we give you the day 8, saying, okay, it's this date, it's a Saturday, call Mayo right away and say, can I schedule a test for this date on the 8th day, so you know for sure you're going to have that time. If you wait till the day before, they might not have times for you to do it. So that'll all be part of the discussion in the short quarantine.
Thank you. Anna.
Okay, and currently we're just quarantining students who are a close contact, right? Like to Jim's point, we're not quarantining students who are a casual contact anyway, correct?
No, it's just close contact, that's 6 feet within 15 minutes. One thing I want to point out, just so it's kind of out there in the open, if you have a positive household member, if you're living with someone who is positive with COVID, you do not qualify for a shortened quarantine. So a lot of the elementary cases that we have are because of family. They have a positive household member, so you're still going to see a lot of 14-day quarantines, especially in the elementary. This is really going to help those classes, lunch, activity, close contacts, so that we can get the students back a couple days sooner than we have in the past. So we're probably going to see this more in the high school than any of the other schools. We also made a form that we are going to require everyone to fill out. Basically, it says, I understand, this is what I need to do. That way we can keep track, help better, track these people that are in short quarantine. We're going to request the help from another staff member, and I think we figured out who it would be, that will be in charge of following up with all these families on day 8 to say, did you get tested? Collect the letters, keep the letters in one spot so that we have all our ducks in a row. Right now, especially at the high school, all our team members are pretty bogged down with a lot of things. So we're gonna add another person to the team to help with that. So, and I think between these two, I got a question from Jennifer about, have we talked to other schools about their short quarantine? And I reached out to 6 other districts that I know their COVID team. And I received one reply back, and they said that they've had success with the shortened quarantine. They haven't seen any, short quarantine kids come and then spread COVID within their school. She said, so far, it's a possibility, and we just need to realize that could be something that happens. But for them, the short quarantining has been working out okay. So,
my other question was just, so after stopping a shortened quarantine, I'm reading from that document.
Yep.
Wear a mask, stay 6 feet from others whenever possible, wash hands, avoid crowds or settings with people who are at risk. But in the high school, we're doing 3 feet of distance. Is there any way that we can, I don't want to make kids who are coming back after a shortened quarantine have to, be like social pariahs, but
right.
If the recommendation is to stay 6 feet apart, how are they going to go have lunch in the cafeteria?
Well,
what are they supposed to do for?
And that's kind of why we put in there wherever possible, the 6 feet wherever possible. Originally, short quarantine, you have to stay 6 feet from everyone, no matter what. But with that learning model, it's just not possible. And so, they only have 4 days left. The risk is lower than, say, if they came back earlier. We're just going to kind of have to, look at it case by case. I know a lot of the classrooms have extra desks. We're working on pulling desks out so we can space those classrooms apart so that hopefully, majority of the classrooms are now at 6 feet again. So we'll be okay there. So I think it's just going to matter. We're going to do the best we can with this. But I know that the other school is all in, and they do have 3 feet distance, and they're short quarantine kids, and they're still not seeing any spread from close contact quarantines. So I think we're just going to have to play it by ear and see how it goes. I would also request that we have the ability to take back the shortened quarantine if something kind of gets out of control. Just like the other district in Goodhue County, they were fine, and then now they're distance learning. So things can change in an instant. But we'd really like to try this and see how it goes. I know the high school especially is looking forward to it. And it's really going to help prom to graduation. If something happens at prom and we short quarantine the kids, they'll be able to come back for graduation. Whereas if it was a long quarantine, they wouldn't. So.
Ms. Tift?
My questions were answered. Thank you.
Okay. And Ms. Buck?
I was just gonna state down on Prairie Island, we do the shortened quarantine testing on day 8, and if he comes back negative, you can come back in 10 days as well. But for us, we're not in offices either, so we're not in close quarantine, so that works. But I also like to hear when you present. I like when you put your input on it, because you are our specialties, and I trust your judgment, and thank you for always just reminding us your input. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other comments or questions for Shonda? All right, then,
Pam, I didn't put my name in, but I did have one question for Shonda. So right now I had emailed Carson and asked about how many classes we have that are out and how many kids we have currently out. You know, I'm getting a lot of feedback from people that are saying, well, like this school is out and this school is out and this school is going to, we're not those schools. And I know that you guys are following what you need to follow. So like Nikki said, there's a high trust in your decision making. What are we at with our numbers in terms of how many classrooms are out? I know Karsten said, was this now when you were going to expound on it, Karsten, or was it later?
Yeah, Shonda, do you have that information on hand? Otherwise, I'll look it up on the school website.
Yep. So we currently have 168 students or people, I guess, in the district out on close contact quarantine. And then we have, in the board packet, it says 4 positive. We are now at 8 positive. That's how fast things change between 11 a.m. this morning and now. We have 2 full classrooms at Twin Bluff that are out, and then 1 we just quarantined on Sunday night. That'll be out for 14 days. So, and as far as the high school, it's not full classes that are being quarantined. It's pieces of classes. Okay. So, you know, we've got about, what do I have here? At the high school, we have 64 out for close contact, and that's within, some of them are from family members because they have positive family members, but a lot of them are contact in class, lunch, and then we had 3 on the bus this last week. So, you know, it's not really too bad. I mean, it looks like a lot. It's 168, but we were there last fall, and the cases are up, you know, in the state and in the county, and so we're just going to kind of see a flux of ins and outs. Hopefully, we've reminded students and staff that if you have symptoms, do not come to the building. Please call in. 3 of the new positives we had today, they were all, 1 was a distance learner and 2 were already at home on a close contact quarantine, so they weren't even in the building, which is great to see. So, you know, when you hear 8, it sounds like a lot, but that, you know, not very many have affected other people within the district. So, in about 3 days, we're going to be taking off a lot of the student quarantines, close contact quarantines from 2 weeks ago. And so that number is going to drop drastically, and it just depends on how this week goes. Thursday seems to be our magic day of when we get our positives and have to quarantine people. So,
have we heard of any of the higher strains or the other strains coming in our area?
No, we haven't. But I wouldn't doubt if it's here and it's doing its thing. Okay. We did request MDH to test some of our samples, but we haven't heard back if they're going to. My guess is everyone wants their samples tested. So I don't know if we're a priority or not. Comparatively, we're doing very well. We are nowhere near our 5% in the building, in any building. And we're keeping the people out that need to stay out and quarantining who needs to quarantine. So if another positive pops up, they're already out of the building. They're not going to affect anyone. So it's just staying on top of it and watching where it goes. So.
And how many do you have on your team besides the 3 of you? How many have you added?
Well, we're going to add 1 more to our team for the high school. So. And
you have building people too?
Yeah, we have building COVID teams, which are usually the nurse, the secretary, the student service coordinator or vice principals. They're kind of ahead of it. And so we're going to add another to that team at the high school to kind of help track these short quarantines because it's going to be a lot of work. So
you're doing a great job. So kudos to you guys. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Arlen.
Yeah, I guess I'm still concerned.
confused here on the shortened quarantine. Is that a recommendation from the COVID response team that we go to the 10-day short? Because our board packet says no recommendation at this time.
What I have, or what I,
That's in the board packet says that you are recommending the 14.
well, and this one, I don't know, I pulled this off of the agenda, and this is the one that the information with the 8-day quarantine, or the 10-day quarantine with 8-day testing. The COVID response team will recommend that students quarantine for 14 days unless they can answer no to the following questions and sign the following document. So basically, do you have a positive household member? If you answer yes, you're automatically 14-day quarantine. If it's no, then we can work with you on the shortened quarantine. And not everyone's going to qualify. It just depends on each situation. But it's an offer. You know, we've for a long time wanted to keep it at the 14-day. It is the safest. I think it will be until we're through this. But we're seeing, you know, we've talked to many groups, and we're seeing that it's going to really impact the end of school for a lot of students. And so if we can try to offer this 10-day to them, and hopefully the next 7 weeks or 6 weeks will be a little bit easier for them. Now, again, if we see something that's, you know, our short quarantine people are coming back and then popping up positive in our school, then we're going to have to rethink this 10-day quarantine. But I think we're ready to try to offer it and see how it goes.
All right. I'm trying to clarify. My board packet says nothing, no changes recommended. But now, since the time the board packet came out, we're getting a report tonight that's, you had the data in here, what you would recommend if we did go through it, but my board packet says you recommend the 14 days.
Yeah, and if I could jump in, and I'll take full responsibility for that. When the high school admin, COVID team members and I met, one of the expectations that I wanted is that all of us would be on the same page. And so, you know, they had a day to process that. And I think they sent it maybe through a shared Google document or something. And so I didn't see that in my inbox. I was relying on just regular email. And so that's why I did that there. But then later I found out that they indeed did agree with the 10-day quarantine. So that's why there's a mix up with the board pack, and that's complete. I'll take full responsibility for that.
I'm with you, Arlen. I was
the
confused.
recommendation from the COVID team now is that we allow 10-day under these conditions. That is the recommendation that came out since the board packet was put out, which is a change. Is that correct? Okay.
So it sounds like I am looking for a motion in that regards. Arlen? Oh, Ms. Ostendorf?
I will make a motion that we adopt the shortened quarantine in limited circumstances at the direction of the COVID response team.
Ooh, can I add one thing? We'd like to start offering it on the 26th of April. We need this week to train staff on how to properly short quarantine people. And so we were thinking of starting it on Monday. I forgot that part.
Beginning April 20th. Can I add that?
Yep. So, Jennifer, are you did you get that?
Yes.
Can you read that back for us, please?
Let's see. Motion made by Anna to approve shortened quarantines for students at the direction of COVID response team beginning on April 26th. I will also say that on the minutes that I have that are provided by Lisa and kind of what we were doing, it had stated outlined in the quarantine guidelines for students who are close contact to a positive person. So that's not exactly what Anna said, but that's how it's written on the packet information. So I'm not sure how we want to word it, Anna, if you, so.
I can amend it to,
this says, how about under guidelines as outlined by the COVID response team in the quarantine guidelines for students who are close contact?
sure, yes.
Do I have a second? chair will second that motion. Any further discussion? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question, does the recommendation include the COVID response team can change automatically without coming back to this board to go back to 14 days? If that's the case, I can't agree to that. Because we saw what happened back when we went from learning to totally distance learning. So I want to make sure the motion is that included in the recommendation that you're talking about.
Well, I think in these guidelines, it says that the COVID response team will recommend who is eligible for a 10-day quarantine. So I think kind of no matter what the motion says, you know, like they would have that authority. You know what I mean? Like that's my understanding is they would have that authority to determine who can and who cannot
I get that.
opt for that.
I'm saying Shonda wanted to have it in there that if the numbers increase, she could, the COVID response team could automatically, without any type of direction by this board, to go to automatically scrap the 10-day and go to 14 days. And
I don't know if that's what Shonda maybe could speak to that, but I think it was that she wanted it to be able to come back to us, correct?
Well, I was kind of hoping that we would be able to make that decision on our own. That way we didn't have to wait for 2 weeks to get in front of the board. I don't know. I don't know when or if that would happen. I just we don't know which way the situation is going. If we turn up to have, let's say, we've short quarantined 20 people, they've come back, and then 4 of them have now had symptoms and test positive, and now we're quarantining other students because we short quarantined those original students. Is it a safe thing then to continue to short quarantine if we're seeing a spread from people who have short quarantined and now are positive? I don't know if that's going to happen, but somewhere along the line, we have to make the decision to be able to say, okay, wait, let's stop doing this 10-day because it's not working. We're still getting short quarantine kids in the building and they're testing positive and making other students quarantine. Can we say at that time, okay, let's stop doing the 10-day, let's go back to the 14-day without having to go to the board and say, can we do this? I don't know if it would happen. I just, and it's something that probably needs to happen sooner rather than later. And so I don't know how that would work with the board. I don't know. What do you guys think?
well, I'm not in favor of doing it that way you described. I mean, we just went through the fiasco of special meetings here a month or 2 ago, but we could call an emergency meeting if something like that happens, and then the criteria is much less. That would be the direction I would be more comfortable going than just giving policy decision-making to something other than this board, since we're asking tonight, pass a motion to do it this certain way. So that's my take.
Yeah, I am also comfortable with that. Board Member Bryant, I would agree that if we need to change something, I think that, we'd need a 3-day notice.
I think, like Jim said, it could be
An
an
emergency?
emergency meeting, which
Okay.
requires a 1-day notice.
One day
Okay.
notice. We'll just make sure we do it 24 hours.
Okay.
Okay. Just so we have that option, because things move quickly. And so, we just don't know what's going to happen. So if we can do the emergency, then I'm fine with that.
All right. I see Arlen's hand is up here, and I see Holly's name is in the queue. I'll take Arlen first since I saw that first, and then we'll move to Holly.
Thank you. I'm still confused what this motion actually is going to end up being, so when it's coming time to vote, and I understand the concerns back and forth, I do note that they were talking effective April 26th. We came into this meeting without a recommendation on the board packet. We're trying to do this and make it work. I'm wondering if it would be better to have a clear-cut motion with the exact wording and come back to us at our April 3rd meeting, or May 3rd meeting for approval. That would only delay us a week. But I am also hesitant on that, because what happens if it's a sports team that can't participate in that week? So that's the only drawback to what I'm suggesting, but until I get a clear-cut exact wording that makes sense to me, I'm gonna have a hard time voting tonight on something that I wasn't prepared to vote on.
Harlan, would you like me to read it now that we have put it?
We'll see when it's time to vote.
Holly,
Thank you. I'm going back to before we had given the superintendent permission to pull back if we thought we were moving too fast. Now we're asking, now the COVID team is requesting to pull back if we have moved too fast. So within the confines of a motion, I think we need to be extremely clear or we're going to end up in a very muddled place around who gets to pull it back. Because if we have a situation much like Goodhue or Cannon Falls where all of a sudden they decide to go to distant, are we calling a special meeting, an emergency meeting, based on what? The superintendent's recommendation, the COVID team's recommendation. So I really like the fact that, Karsten, that you and the COVID team have gotten together to push this information forward. I wish it had been in the packet so I could understand it more clearly, but I don't want us to negate the fact that we did give the superintendent permission to pull back without us having a say. You know, so should it stay the same? You know, if Karsten and the COVID team are like, oh goodness, it's out of control in the next 36 hours, we have got to pull back. Are we prepared to go in that direction like we had done in the past? That's kind of where my head's at before it gets really muddled.
no, and I think that's a really important distinction, Holly, because I think we're talking about two different things. One is the 10 to 14 day quarantine, and the other is distance learning or hybrid or full in person. So we gave the overarching responsibility to the superintendent for the distance learning or the hybrid. Right now, we're talking specifically about the quarantine guidelines, period. So I think we need to keep those two things separate. At least that's what's going on in my own head, is those are two very separate things. They're certainly, one influences the other, but I think those are two very separate decisions. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
That'd
right,
be consistent with what we've done in the past, yeah.
yes. So the superintendent, we have as a board given the authority to the superintendent that if he needs to move back to a more restrictive setting for the whole district, to go from right now we're all in person to a hybrid or full distance, he is authorized to do that. And I would assume that the COVID team would have all sorts of information for him to make that decision, but that comes down to him and the board giving him that responsibility to make that decision. So we don't need to be a part of that decision making. I think where it's getting muddy is if we have to say, no, we tried this 10 day and we now need to go back to 14, who's going to make that decision? And what board member Bryant said is that if we have to do that, we're going to make an emergency meeting and we'll make that decision quickly. Are we all on the same page? I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding.
Yeah, and I think Anna made the original motion, so you're saying yes, and then you seconded it, Pam?
Yes.
Okay, just so that we clarify kind of what the expectation is when the motion is voted on.
So Jennifer, can you read the motion one more time as you have it written?
Yes. Motion made by Ostendorf, seconded by Rowe, to approve the shortened quarantine beginning April 26th for students under guidelines as outlined by the COVID response team in the quarantine guidelines for students who are a close contact to a positive person, which is this sheet that we received in our packet. So we would follow that as written by COVID response team.
Crystal clear.
Madam Chair, the big change really is from 14 down to 10.
Yes.
With a negative test, you can come back to school.
Yes.
That's really the big thing. Whether the 5 to 7, I don't agree with, but it's better than 14. So
Right.
I'll agree to that. I'll go along with that tonight.
All right.
Yeah, and again, and I think we're on the same, just to make sure it'd be the 10-day quarantine if there's a negative PCR test on or after the 8th day.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which is listed out in our packet that we got tonight.
Yep.
All right. Any further questions or comments? I will take a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Ms. Tift?
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Ms. Buck?
Aye.
Mr. Derricks?
No.
Ms. Ostendorf?
Aye.
And chair votes aye, so that passes 6-1. And again, I just want to thank you, Shonda, and your COVID team for the work that you're doing. I know it's enormous. And we appreciate you and all the things that you're doing, and please pass that along to your team as well.
Will do. We got a few more weeks of school, and then we got summer school, so we're getting there.
I think we're all ready for a break, huh?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
in the future, I would like that if there's gonna be a change like this coming out on a recommendation, that somehow it is at least put down in writing so we can read what the total recommendation is and how it, I certainly want to see us work with a decent short quarantine, but it's still fuzzy to me what we're doing, the way the motion's worded and everything else is maybe nitpicky, but I think I deserve to have that in front of me in writing, what the recommendation is, not have a change one. If there is, then there should be an addendum change in front of us.
Yeah.
So that is why I voted no. And I think could have waited for 2 weeks. So, thank you.
Point well taken, Arlen.
Yep, good point.
All right. Next on our agenda is strategic directions 1 and 4. Jess Whitcomb, the Director of Teaching and Learning, is here to provide us with more information on these 2 directions. I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Whitcomb.
Thank you. I am just going to present screen here. So you all have in front of you in the board packet this presentation, but just so the public has this in front of them as well. This is just like last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess, with the direction 2 and 3. This is the same format that we had for those 2 directions. You also have the detail in your board packet that go directly to these 2 directions. So just like before, this is coming directly from our strategic plan under direction, I labeled it direction 1 there. Again, based on our vision and our mission and our core values, just as we went over before, we'll focus today on direction 1 and direction 4. So if you, again, always making sure that student learning is at the center of how we're making all of these decisions. So with direction 1, providing that excellent educational opportunities, you can see in that detail that you have in your board packet, there's a lot to go over. So it was hard to narrow it down. We've really been focusing here this year and really enhancing the work that had been done the year before as well. So the Winger Flight Path journey, we're talking about utilizing with Mick Wendland's expertise. We're pulling that Winger Flight Path journey down to our early childhood even, and to talk about how we can increase the communication based on our Winger Flight Path Steering Committee. They said, we love the concept. We think more people need to hear about it. So we increase that communication utilizing our consultants. I'm sure you guys see it through the newsletter that comes out. We're highlighting some of the interns, and then we'll continue to highlight that throughout the end of the year. We are aligning our courses and our curriculum based on our flight path journey. The career speakers that Mick has set up, I think we're about at 65 this year alone. And because that was one of the things that the pandemic actually helped us to do, is that we were able to do more virtual career speakers, so we could really expand who was in that pool. And I think that's something that we're talking about keep going with next year as well, just because we were able to really be more intentional about who's in front of the kids and which careers we're highlighting. Based on the conversations and the collaboration that Mick has been having and we've been having with other districts, he really has become kind of the leader in the field, and Red Wing is really become almost what are you guys doing? We want to model after what you guys are doing. So he gets calls all the time about where are you at and how are you working with businesses. This is something that I always heard when I was working with Every Hand Joined, is that how do you guys get these volunteers? And I will put that back to the community. We just have a community that want to circle around our kids, and they really step up for our kids. And so that's something that also we saw through our K-6 specials this year. We had to do this transition that none of us wanted to do because of the pandemic, but what ended up happening actually is we had these wonderful community members and teachers step up. I really would like to just name them because they've done so much work on the back end for our K-6 specials. You all have seen the website that was created by Amanda Peterson. She also helped with the art. I want to talk about Mandy Stokes and Tara Nelson, along with Heather Flock from the YMCA, put our PE lessons together. We had Allison Rumpka and Mick Wenland working on the STEM lessons. We also had a partnership with Jennifer Staley and Leah Adams from the Sheldon, along with Mike Urturi with Universal Music Center. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who came together to make that happen for our kids and put that together. The other thing that we've been working on is our second year of math curriculum, as well as our first year of Wonders curriculum. There's obviously been some bumps in the road with new curriculum and during a year of pandemic, but I think that we gave those resources that were needed for online that we wouldn't have had otherwise. We also will start a new curriculum, creative curriculum at Colville next year, and working on infusing culturally relevant text based on some grants that we've gotten from GCED in order to put that through our 712 ELA department. The district media staff, and specifically I'd like to call out Meg LaHammer, has really led the way in our resource and asset inventory. We utilized Follett that you all approved, I think last year, where we are really putting all of our resources and really making sure that we have a strong inventory of what we have before we make decisions, so that we make sure that we're making decisions based on the funding that we have and also the resources that we have. So to go into that, really that's what Direction 4 is all about, is making sure that we're making decisions based on strategic investment and the allocation of resources that we have. So one of the things that we really have become efficient in is based off of this alignment of K-6 and this elementary principal PLC that has we've really put our resources together, and we've seen them work hard together to say, how do we align what we do and utilize our people resources in a way that makes sense for all kids. We also have the all staff evaluations. There's a committee making decisions on how do we make sure that we're really supporting all staff when we talk about evaluations, and through iObservation, we will all be in the same system so that we can start having conversations about how that professional development works for all staff members. For recruitment and retention, we've talked about the Grow Your Own initiative, and then also our district wellness team that focuses on the wellness of our staff along with the wellness of our kids. And then the informed decisions is always based on like the school board strategic funding and the HR planning and where you guys live as far as your responsibility. So really that is what we have. There's a lot that I didn't get to go over that lives in that detailed document. I debated a long time with myself on what to highlight. It's hard when there's so many people doing great work. So any questions on that?
Ms. Ostendorf?
So first of all, thank you, Jess. I really appreciate all of the work that you put into this. My only, I guess, question / suggestion for next time is in that like expanded document. As somebody, pretty new to the board, it's hard for me to sort of see what are things that we are doing, have done, will do, like, where that progression is. Just bullet 1, a 3 to 5 year work plan is being revised for implementation of flight paths. I know some of that has been done, you know, so like, is it done? Are we in year 4? Are we, you know what I mean? Like, that would have just been a little bit more information that I know you already have given us a ton of information, but as we kind of continue to work through this, that's what would be helpful for me to see is where we're at in that progress, I guess.
Sounds good.
I think that's a great suggestion because if you just pick up that piece and you don't know where we're actually at, as I look at year 2, but yes, what's been done, what still needs to be done.
I'm sure.
And I think that exists. We just don't have it in the board packet. Yes, sir, Mr. Bryant.
It's kind of nice being in person here. We can just raise our hand and she can see us. So it's kind of nice getting back to that formality that we had some time ago. Jess, just thanks again for doing a nice report. And we talked about, you know, the information's in the packet to read it and all that. But I mean, it's nice that Anna brought that up because, yeah, we sometimes forget that, you know, a few of us been here a few years, some longer, some shorter. So, but, you know, I encourage anybody to reach out to you to get further information if they need to from your discussion tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Ms. Whitcomb? All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing your information with us tonight, Jess. We really appreciate it and keep up that great work.
Thank you all.
We'll look forward to seeing you next Monday. She'll be joining us for our workshop on equity. And Jim and I got a preview of that this last week, so we're very much looking forward to that. All right, next on our agenda is school board reports. I know personnel gave an update last week or 2 weeks ago. I don't believe that there's anything new to report there. Operations, anything new to report tonight?
We gave a thorough and in-depth report at last 2 weeks ago.
Yes, nothing new. All right, finance, Ms. Tower?
Oh my goodness, I almost turned myself off. Nope, we've been over this, the finance stuff. And so we're just kind of watching it play out. The only thing I want to know is if we've gotten any money. Jackie?
Yes, and we will talk a little bit about that at Finance Committee next week. We have received our ESSER 2 allocation as of about a week or so ago. So
Okay, so we'll be able to.
We'll talk about some plans on suggestions on spending next week.
Okay, so as long as it's in the account, we're good.
Awesome. Legislative policy, you met just prior to this meeting tonight. Any updates you'd want to share with us tonight?
Yeah, we met tonight, discussed school board procedures. I think the board was emailed a copy of where we were at a month or 2 ago, and then discussed that further here tonight with a couple other concerns issued. I don't know if they'll be updated or if they'll be presented there, and then the concerns will be presented at the time it goes to the board on that. We talked about non-discrimination procedures, proposed changes to policy 503, which has to do with school attendance, and some recommendation will be coming back on that. And we ran out of time. That's the bottom line. We couldn't get a whole lot of everything done because we were past our 5:45 deadline by another 7 minutes. We had to just move some of that to our next meeting. I think we are, if I'm right, Carson is going to pull the data sharing in the consent agenda, or we will, I think that's going to be pulled at consent agenda time. It's not really ready yet.
Okay, thank you. Negotiations, our crew met with the cooks this last week, and we gave them our proposal draft number 1. And we're waiting to hear back, and hopefully we'll be moving along on that. Other committees, let's see. How about a GCED board?
I was just going to say GCED. We had the all county workshop this past, was it Wednesday? And Anna and Pam and myself attended, and just went through a lot of interesting information about GCED. And Sherry Johnson went through kind of where it started and talked a little bit about the joint powers that happened way back when. I don't know if it was 98 or 99, something like that, how the building came to be, how the programming came to be, and then the expansion of it. And so they're expanding into the online learning portion, and there's going to be the need for an administrator. So I think for our knowledge here in Red Wing, how does that administrator get paid? Are they paid from Red Wing? Are they paid from the consortium? Like, how does that work? And I don't know the answer to that. I'll find out more this Thursday at the board meeting. But there was a presentation about the online learning component, Five Rivers Online Learning, I think it was called. Yeah, so, a lot of things have been able to happen over at GCED that have kind of been able to keep Red Wing, on the edge of some things that are happening around the state. And I'm always biased that that Minnesota has a lot of progressive things that happen for our students. And so I think that, they've been able to keep the county schools in the loop on a lot of stuff. So we'll see how the online school gets running. But Carson, maybe you can speak a little bit to that.
To which part?
The administrator, the administrative costs for that online school.
Sure. The Sherry Johnson suggested the hiring of a principal, and the cost would be allocated based on student participation in the program. So for example, if Red Wing had 60% of the students, then we would pay 60% of the cost of that administrator.
Okay.
What,
Go ahead.
may I ask a question for you, Ms. Dollar and Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Is that federal money that can be reimbursed for that position, or state money with that?
My understanding is that it's all part of the GCED reimbursement piece. However, it's not all kids with IEPs that are going to be using the online school. So I think that it's going to have to be delineated out. Am I wrong, Karsten?
Well, yeah, my understanding, of course, it all depends on the guidance that we get for ESSER 2 and 3, which just came out. But, the cost would be affiliated with an online school. It's a direct relationship with COVID. And so my assumption is that we could use federal funds through ESSER 2 and or 3 to help pay for our costs. Yeah. But it will depend on this school board, as far as what that plan looks like for those two federal funding sources.
Well, and I understood that the ADM would follow. So our students, we would still be paid for our students as if they were attending our building school. They would just be attending the online school. So the ADM follows.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Holly.
No, I think that's a good point that you brought up. And I was just thinking about that more, but it depends on who attends the online school in terms of the financial reimbursement in terms of special ed that Goodhue County gets reimbursed for. So I think your question, Jim, had multiple layers of an answer, but it was a good question.
Is that position, the principal position, cognizant or not cognizant, but met by a certain number of students that have to go distance learning in that to qualify? So if 20 do it, it's a go, or 50 if it's a go, 20 it's not, is there a criteria for participation?
I think that's another really good question. And we didn't get the answer to that. All we were told is that there will need to be a principal for the online school. But I think that's a really good question. Do we need a principal for 8 kids? Do we need a principal for, 20 kids?
Right.
What do we need? And so I think Carson and Sherry will kind of finagle whatever that looks like. And then our board hopefully will have a big say.
We'll put that in your two capable hands of finding that answer.
I will find out on Thursday, sir.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Any other committees that need reporting? All right, then we'll go to administrative reports.
I have a short report this evening. I'll just mention the topics, and then you can ask me questions if you have any. First, I did write a letter of support for the Nursing Skills Lab for a grant that was submitted by Minnesota State College Southeast. As you may know, I did send a response to the death of Dante Wright to parents and other stakeholders. Good news as far as pathways to scholarships, the Colville Family Center did receive $35,500 in each of 2 fiscal years to pay tuition for preschool children who qualify according to state guidelines. So that's always good news. And then just mention of the future workshop topics in April, and hopefully numerous other sections will focus on, or sessions, over spanning several months will be focused on equity work. But this coming April is the first or the next in that series. We also have online learning discussion scheduled for May. That's all I have.
All right.
It is short.
We are moving on to the consent agenda. Anybody need to remove anything from the consent agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to remove the consent agenda item about the Project Rousseau agreement.
Is that number 6?
Yes, that's item number 6.
All right. Any other changes or removals?
You got Holly in it too.
Holly? No?
You're on mute.
Your mic is off. I didn't get my name in the queue. Carson, were you going to go over the ad hoc committee stuff from your administrative report later?
Yes, I will.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to clear that up.
All right. So we have the removal of
Item
number
1.
6. Yes. Mr. Derricks.
I'd like to pull item 1, minutes of the last meeting.
Okay. Anything else? All right, so I am looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item number 1 and item number 6.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus number 1 and number 6.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. Any other discussion? We'll take a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Tift.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant,
All right.
Ms. Buck,
Aye.
Mr. Derricks,
Aye.
Ms. Ostendorf,
Aye.
Ms. Tower,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. So the consent agenda minus those 2 items passes 7-0. All right. Superintendent Anderson, do you want to discuss number 6?
Yeah, the request is just to remove that agreement so that I can get some more questions answered and also present detailed information about our data sharing procedures.
So we'll remove that completely and present it at a later date.
Correct.
Okay. And then Mr. Derricks, number 1.
Yes, thank you. This pertains to the minutes of our April 5th meeting, I guess it was. Item 4.4, response to resolution of non-concurrence. It states, motion made by Tiff, second by Opp, to approve the resolution establish an ad hoc committee to provide feedback about a response to the letter of non-concurrence as presented. Upon roll call vote, motion carried 4-1. Aye, Ostendorf, Tower, Tiff, and Bryant. Nay, Derricks. I think we should include the names of the people that were assigned to that ad hoc committee rather than just that they appointed a committee. Usually committees have the names of who they are. So I'd like to see us add the names of like Nikki and Holly and myself
Okay. Can we make sure that gets done and added to the next consent agenda?
Yep.
If
Wonderful.
everybody is okay with that, I'd like to move that we approve the minutes of that meeting with that change.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? So we're voting on number 1 with the changes that Mr. Derricks had just outlined to name the 3 ad hoc committee members. Motion made by Arlen, seconded by Jim. Any other discussion? We'll start with Mr. Bryant,
Aye.
Ms. Buck,
Aye.
Mr. Derricks,
Aye.
Ms. Ostendorf,
Aye.
Ms. Tower,
Aye.
Ms. Tift,
Aye.
and chair votes aye, so that passes 7-0. Thank you. Resolution accepting donations and grants.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
just, I guess I'll make a motion to approve with just a question after that.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Bryant, seconded by Ms. Tift. Discussion, Mr. Bryant, do you have a
Thank you.
question?
Just a couple of things. What is a 12-player floorball set?
You know, I did
I
not,
should have asked you ahead of time. I didn't mean to blindside you here. Can you find that out and just let us know?
1 minute. It's gonna take me a little bit.
No, that's fine. You don't have to do it tonight. It's gotta be a good thing. They wouldn't give it to us if it wasn't. And being a past member and president of the Red Wing Booster Club, I am pleased to see their contribution of $15,000 to Winger Activities Community Project. That could be in multiple of things, which I applaud them for. And that's a group of people working hard on behalf of the community and school district to promote activities in the school district. Not just sports, but activities.
and it's focused towards the digital trophy case that we talked about earlier. Yeah,
That's
very
great.
grateful for a $15,000 donation.
Did you find out what it is?
Yes, it is floor ball, but looking at the equipment, it looks like floor hockey with a ball.
6 on the side, that makes sense.
Yep.
A 38-inch large and 34-inch, that's pretty good size.
Was that for the middle school?
It is, I believe, for all schools. We have a former Red Wing High School student who works for Gopher Sport, and they had some demonstration sets that they chose to donate, and she
Great.
picked to donate them back to us.
Great. And a nice $1,000, a little shy $1,100 for the music program. Applaud them for that. Endowment, St. Paul and Minneapolis, Minnesota Foundation.
We certainly could not do it without some great partners out there supporting us. So thank you to Gopher Sport, Red Wing Public Schools Music Endowment Fund, and the St. Paul, Minnesota Foundation, and the Red Wing Booster Club. We are greatly appreciative of those donations. So the motion's made to accept them, made by Mr. Bryant, seconded by Ms. Tift. We'll take a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Mr. Derricks.
Aye.
Ms. Ostendorf.
Aye.
Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Ms. Tift.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so that passes 7-0. All right, response to resolution of non-concurrence, Superintendent Anderson.
Recently, the Native American Parent Committee submitted a resolution of non-concurrence with our educational programming for American Indian children. A board authorized ad hoc committee met on April 12th to review a draft response. And that draft response did incorporate some changes based on feedback from the parent committee. The board needs to respond to this resolution on or before April 20th. So I'm really hoping we can approve the response tonight. So the letter or the resolution is broken up into 2 parts. You can see the first half is just the 5 suggestions that the parent committee recommended. And then the next few pages are the responses to those recommendations. Once again, the ad hoc committee reviewed the response and recommends approval of this particular document.
Discussion, questions?
I will make the motion to approve the resolution in response to letter of non-concurrence as presented.
Motion made by Ms. Tift. And Ms. Ostendorf will second that. Any other discussion?
I'll just thank once again the parent committee for reviewing our educational programming and coming up with these recommendations. I think it's a good step in the process. I feel really good about our response, and we want continued dialogue with the parent committee as well as others to provide the best programming possible. So thank you, parent committee members.
Well, I'd also like to thank the ad hoc committee members for coming together and putting together a response in a timely manner that kind of got under the gun a little bit in terms of coming forward and being able to put some more time and energy into a committee that you weren't planning on at the beginning of the year. So thank you for coming forward and doing that great work. All right. Motion made by Ms. Tiff, seconded by Ms. Ostendorf. Any further comments?
I just have a question. Is this something where we expect that there's going to be a lot of dialogue back and forth? Like, do we expect a response? This is, of course, my first time going through this. So how exactly does that work?
Yeah, and this is the first time I've ever had a resolution of non-concurrence. But my understanding is that resolution comes to the school board. We respond, in a similar way like we did. And then that issue is resolved in terms of, the original resolution. So obviously we're making commitments in our response, and we will follow through with those commitments. We'll have, we want continued dialogue with all sorts of groups throughout Red Wing. And as we've talked about before, we want to make sure that all voices are heard in the process. And so we'll continue the dialogue with the Native American Committee, Prairie Island, and all sorts of other people. But in terms of this resolution, it'll be resolved as soon as we send it to the state and parent committee. Which reminds me, Jennifer, if we could have you stop by the district office and sign off on it before you leave tonight.
Yeah, I will do that.
All right, we'll take a roll.
Oh, Holly just put her name in the queue.
Okay, Holly, sorry.
Yeah, and I was just going to add that we had a very in-depth ad hoc meeting. However, we didn't get Nikki's voice in there, which I just want you to know, Nikki, that if you look it over and you see something, different or something that should be included, I'm all ears to whatever you have to suggest. And I also would say that moving forward, this document that Carson just finished is the framework for a tremendous amount of conversation and planning and financial decision-making to go forward. So I feel like the initial framework that Carson put together, I think should suffice. But again, we're open to feedback, and whatever the state or the Native American Parent Committee says, or any committee members or family members in any way. So I just wanted to put that out there, that we don't know what we don't know, but I know we're very willing to learn.
Thank you, Holly. And I appreciate both you and Arlen and Karsten really working hard at this. And like you said, it's just the beginning of the framework. I just want to, because this has been brought up a lot, and I just want to make clarification. It's not that Red Wing hasn't been concurrence over the years. And we understand that, and coming from a non-Indigenous eyes, yes, but coming from the child that came through this district, numerous different generations, the district did fail by not setting up things for me to learn the way that I learn with my culture and my traditions and my language. I had to go seek them out afterwards, 41 years old, as we're burying tribe members at an fast rate, a lot of them younger than me. And now, as I'm watching that next generation come up, like I had said, I pull my own kids from the school so I can engulf them with their culture, traditions, and language. So that way, when they get on that outside world, that they're not struggling to survive. So I really appreciate everybody's time and effort into this, and know that that you have somebody. How do you know what to fix if you don't know yourself? So please utilize me as best as you can. You know, we're in this together. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nikki.
We will take a roll call vote on the motion to approve the resolution in response to letter of non-concurrence as presented. Mr. Derricks.
Aye.
Ms. Ostendorf.
Aye.
Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Ms. Tift.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant.
Aye.
Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, COVID leave under the American Rescue Plan Act, presented by Jackie Paradis and Amy French.
All right, you have some background information in your packets. So Families First Coronavirus Response Act, was passed last March. So as of April 1st of 2020, we were mandated to grant our employees 10 days of paid COVID leave above and beyond their normal sick leave allocations. So we did that through December 31st. And then in December, the Consolidated Appropriations Act was passed that gave employers the option to extend those original 10 days to March 31st. The board approved that on January 7th. And they had 10 days to use from April 1st of 2020 to March 31st of 2021. So 1 year to use those original 10 days. The American Rescue Plan Act was passed in the middle of March. It gives employers like schools an option to grant employees 10 additional days for reasons related to COVID from April 1st to April 30th. So the original 10 days are gone. You didn't use them, they don't carry over. So we have the option now to grant 10 additional days. If a board elects, again, they would be between April 1st and September 30th is what is written in the law. There also the uses of these days have been expanded to include vaccinations. So you could go use these days to go get your vaccination, or if you have a reaction to the vaccination, that was not included in the original 10 days. Just some statistics for you. Under the Families First Coronavirus Act, we've granted 672 days of paid leave, and the leave has cost us $131,209, not including substitutes. Unlike a small business or another business who was obligated to grant leave under the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, schools were not eligible for all of the tax credits. So this has come out of our general fund. We only had the FICA taxes forgiven. We did not get credits for the full wages like a small business would. So this has cost us money. We did survey some of our neighboring districts and districts in the Big 9. 23 districts responded. Only 7 are planning to implement, and many are planning to implement with revisions, not as written in the law. All staff have been given the opportunity to be vaccinated if they so choose, and we're worried that if we grant 10 additional days of leave, substitute availability has been better, but if staff have another 10 days of leave, it could become a problem again. As we were getting our ducks in a row, getting ready to make a recommendation, we reached out to Abdo, Ike, and Myers, our auditors. They have a branch of their firm that is dedicated to HR. So we asked them kind of what they're seeing on this, what their guidance for us would be. Their recommendation is that we hold off for now because the guidance from the IRS and the Department of Labor has not been issued on this act yet. So we don't know if we can modify what is written in the law since it's optional to do something in between. And we don't know if we're eligible for tax credits again. I would make the recommendation as well that we hold until the further guidance is issued, because we can always implement retroactively at a later date. Are there any questions? Amy is online, if you have questions for her as well.
Ms. Tower, you're in the queue.
I want to thank Amy and Jackie for putting the information together. That gives me a much clearer picture of what was rolled out last time. And it was kind of a short, this is what we're thinking and this is why. And I understood where you were coming from, but I was seeing it from another angle. So I appreciate the information that you put in. And I like the thought of holding, because it can be retroactive until you find out more information in terms of the IRS and what that actually could look like. I still want to be very clear, though, that families aren't vaccinated, teachers are, and it's a family business teaching. So it encompasses many things. So I just want us to stay on top of it. But I really do appreciate that, and I look forward to hearing more as more stuff comes out.
Arlen had his hand raised.
All right, I don't know if you can give me this answer, probably not, but I would assume that those that ran out of the COVID leave that we had and then were gone use sick leave if they had it available. Do you have any idea how many of those had sick leave available for that? Or had to just not have any income at all?
I don't know the answer to that.
Do you think it's quite a few or very few?
I know of one case in particular, but I don't know if there's additional I have not heard of.
And the reason I'm asking is I do believe we should probably pay back on this, and I see the recommendation is not to do it at this time until we get more information. I'm just concerned if it's put employees at financial harm at this time, waiting for us to make a decision. Because if they use sick leave and we do decide to grant this, then we would give them their sick leave days back, and they didn't have a financial impact immediately. It's just long-term because those sick days are gone. But if we have a number of people that are hurting because they didn't have sick leave to use and then we're off, that concerns me, and I hope then in that case that we would come back with something real soon to reimburse if we decide to go on this. I do favor waiting, but unless we have a problem with people hurting right away on the finances.
Nikki.
I noticed, just a question. It said if the board elects, have new bank of 10 paid days for COVID-related reasons from April 1st, 2021 to September 30th, 2021. I know you mentioned summer school. Does that include that summer school teachers for those? Okay, that's just all I was wondering.
Include any full or part-time employee working for us in that time period.
Okay. Mr. Bryant?
Thank you, Madam Chair. How many employees do we have?
Full and part-time employees is around 445.
And out of the 445, how many gets built up sick leave on a monthly pay period, monthly or annual?
I don't have the exact number, but
400, 350?
Yeah, I would say 350 to 400. Majority of our employees are full-time and build up sick leave.
And talk a little bit from Arlen's point there, many of them, being somebody that has been working in different jobs, most people have an abundance of sick leave built up.
Right.
And looking at the cost of this, according to your report, $130,000, $131,000, not including substitutes. So substitutes, if I recall my memory right, $200 to $240 per day for substitutes. That number of 131,000 climbs considerably. Not everybody gets this, but people have sick leave for sick time-related issues. Taking care of your child, whether they have the flu, strep throat, surgery, take care of themselves. There are some that I have found a few, and where we're just burned through it because they burned it. They don't want to lose it. They feel whatever reason they use it a lot. Now, I'm not condoning there isn't reasons for do that. I'm not saying that, but I'm not in favor of going ahead and just looking at doing this because it's available. Let's look at it to see if it's necessary and time down the road. I'm not right now, as it stands now, I would not be in favor of doing this based upon the information presented tonight. Thank you.
So actually, the recommendation is to hold off until we have more information. Jennifer?
Yeah, I just kind of in response to Jim's comment, I would just like to recognize that we have a lot of young staff, new staff that haven't been here for a long time that probably don't have the sick time built up, and also that COVID brings into, it's kind of a different context where it's not just being sick for a few days, but there's a lot that can happen with COVID. And so I'm definitely in support of taking care of our staff in any way that we can. So I agree with holding off until we have all the information, but I do think it's important to stay on top of this and look at it soon again.
Do we have any sort of ballpark timeline on when we might have more information to be able to act on this?
No. There has been no dates released from the IRS or the Department of Labor on when they may come out with guidance.
So perhaps this should be put on the agenda for next time, and just if you could give us an update on where we're at, and if maybe we have more guidance, then we can put it as an agenda item. All right, thank you for that presentation, Jackie, and for that information. It was very helpful to put that into context. Mr. Derricks.
I just want to point out that this is dealing with COVID pay from April 1st of this year on. It has nothing to do with what we did in the past.
Right.
So my first impression would be it's not a whole lot, but then I also note that there are some different classes that are in quarantine right now. So that means we do have some staff that may be quarantined if they didn't get vaccinated.
Well, as far as the quarantines, I mean, it's possible that those teachers are still teaching. It's just
Right.
distance learning.
So I don't know how much it affects them, but this is only dealing with additional COVID pay from April 1st through September. And my thoughts are it's probably not going to be that much cost to the district. That's a relative number. It's hard to put a finger on it, but if it can be substantial, somebody already has been off before and they got it again or something. So I look forward to more information at another meeting.
Yes, thank you. All right. Moving on to the next item on our agenda is the Twin Bluff Playground. Mr. Gaylord, the Director of Buildings and Grounds, is here to give us some more information.
Good evening, Board. Back on April 5th, the Operations Committee had reviewed the concept of a playground on multiple occasions over a period of several years. The committee recently asked the administrative team to identify the level of support needed from the community and a timeline for fundraising and installation. This recommendation is being made because it gives us the greatest chance to install the playground equipment this summer at that Twin Bluff School campus. The goal is to construct a playground this summer if equipment is received in a timely fashion and installers can be scheduled accordingly. If a recommendation is approved today, equipment would be ordered May 1st and installers scheduled. The playground will be located between the primary school entrance and the Twin Bluff Road as shown on the maps when we get to them here as I go through this. To allow for future expansion, wood chips would be used on the playground surface. The school district will allocate $70,000, $60,000 out of the operating capital, and another $10,000 out of the buildings and grounds department budget. In addition, students have raised over $25,000. These amounts will pay for phase 1 of the playground. As additional funds are received, additional equipment would be ordered and installed when possible. As everyone knows, that playground would be a valuable resource for the school and the neighborhood and the community of Redmond. In our packet that I shared with you, if you go to the playground designs, and if you're looking at the designs, the first design you'll see there is the actual recommendation that I'm putting forth this evening. That is got the play area with it, along with 4 swing sets there. As you go to the other next one down, that would be phase 1 if we did that, just the playground assembly. But the recommendation I'm doing today is the phase option 2, and that is for the $55,000 playground equipment price range. The next one down, that would be the full plan for later years if we added things in the future to the playground, we could do that. If we look at the layout of the school, where we would put this playground, we talked about putting it out in front. I think we would have further discussion. I think if we did it with this option that we're recommending, we would put it in that area in the front, not necessarily where that box is right now. The reason I say that is we could move it towards the exit of the Twin Bluff School there for this phase, and we could always maintain that opportunity to have that playground, as we discussed earlier, as the Sunnyside proposal. This proposal is nothing close to Sunnyside's where we first started. So it would be, instead of putting that where that square is, that other playground would be a better option because it's more towards that sidewalk and that drainage ditch for tying in with the city water runoff and things. So like I said, we'd move it over just a little bit with this recommendation. This design that we're doing here, like I said, is more cost effective. We're using wood chips instead of like the rubber playground that we did first roughly talked about. That's saving us $68,000 in by doing this in phases. The other thing we need to look at is the recommendation, if we can order the material before May 1st, we will save $4,439.98 by ordering it before the May 1st deadline. Anybody have any questions?
Holly's in the queue, and then Nikki.
Thank you. Alan, could you tell me a little bit about the flooring? You said wood chips versus what they have at Sunnyside. What is recommended for IDEA or the people with handicaps and different things with disabilities? What is the recommendation?
So you can use wood chips. We would set up ADA, like at Sunnyside, we have mats. So wheelchair accessible, they can wheel into the areas and stuff like that. So you can use wood chips, which is what we would do.
And you would have mats then?
Yes.
Okay.
Mats underneath the swings, and then you would have it ADA accessible to that play structure with mats.
Okay. That was my only question. I was just curious as to how that would go. And growing up in that neighborhood, I'd have been so excited to have a playground. Woof.
Nikki, and then Anna.
I love your idea. I like your recommendation of the first one and then adding potential additional equipment later. I like the fact that if we can get a decision made that we also get $4,000 off of supplies. I'm a worrywart, and safety first, I always say. And looking at that map, I don't know how safe I feel with a children's playground being so close to a busy street. And right now I see that they have, it looks like snow fence to me, as a parent, if I had a young child at Twin Bluff Middle School, I'd be very concerned about that street. So that's just kind of my only concern is where it would go.
So, and I can talk a little bit about that. So we are currently accepting, I've met with some fence companies and currently waiting on quotes coming back to put a fence all the way along Twin Bluff Road. That would go from the exit to the entrance all the way down. Well, it wouldn't. It'd stop at that the concrete path there because it starts back up and then it's that detention pond. So we wouldn't put that fence there. But then on the other side of the exit of Twin Bluff, we would put fencing along there going up to the roundabout too. This would be done soon as we could, just to help with safety of the students there right now. And if we needed to do long-term fencing, once the playgrounds were up, we'd always look at that later in the process.
Ellen, was there a spot that was considered in a different location that might be a little bit less scary, for lack of a better word?
So there was discussion of maybe putting it down by the pool side down there. In the springtime, it's real soggy down there. It takes some time to dry out. One of the other things is too, with parking, there's excellent parking up in the front. It's visible. It's more easily monitored by school staff rather than having it in the back. So that's kind of the reason we decided to go with it at the front there. We have talked, and I've talked with Chris about kind of some of the kids thing and parents picking people up. And he thought they had a pretty good grasp on it as they were learning more things of how they could make sure the kids were safe. And like I said, that option would be too, as we move forward, if we had to add more fencing to help that safety issue, we certainly could do that at that time.
Do we have any idea how much the fence would cost?
Got 5,000 in there as a budget.
Which is probably a little low.
Which is low.
Yes.
Gosh.
If I look at it, when we measured it out, and he hasn't got me the quote yet, we just did it. You're looking at almost 450 to 500 feet of fencing. So, I'm thinking 10 to 20 just to be safe there on fencing.
And are we talking chain link fence and how high? 6 feet, 5 feet?
So we do 4 foot
4.
is what I was quoting, 4 foot, and I quoted to get both in galvanized and in black.
Okay.
My recommendation, I like black. I think it would look really good, but that's a cost issue thing.
Anna, you're in the queue, and then Mr. Bryant.
I'm not in the queue.
So I have 2 questions, one for you and one for Jackie and/or Karsten. My question was similar, just in terms of the location. It also gives me a lot of pause to have it be so close to the road. And I do appreciate that side by the pool gets swampy. I don't know if there's landscaping things. I mean, I know everything has a cost, but if we would be saving money on the fence, if that could be turned into any landscaping issues that, might mitigate that. yeah, it's just that aspect kind of gives me questions. So I don't know if so my first question was going to be about the location, which you did already kind of answer to Nikki's question. But if there's any other mitigation on that pool side that could be done. And then my question for Jackie or Karsten is, where does that fall with our budget that we just had to make $2.3 million in cuts to? Do we have the money to authorize this today? So those are my two questions.
Alan, do you want to take the first one?
Sure, I'll take the first one.
And Jackie.
So if we look around at the pool side there, we do have a practice football field that gets used quite often. You know, technically speaking, if you would put it in that area, you know, you're gonna get potential, you know, with practices and stuff, that playground's gonna be pretty close to that field. There's not a lot of room there. We also have irrigation things there. We have blowouts that we blow out our irrigation that go to the far fields there. So I think that would be quite a bit of work. You know, I know that's not the greatest place for it, but.
Or closer to that, like, turnaround spot by the cafeteria? Is that still part of like the practice football area, or it starts to go uphill there?
Yeah, it starts to go up the hill. And then if you look at other areas, you know, if we put it in a different area where we still want to work with that natural playground, putting that in. We've got Gaga ball that we ordered we're putting that together this week for the kids for something to do, so we need a spot for that. Yeah.
Okay.
Then Hannah, Jackie has the answer to your second question.
All right, you can see in Alan's budget proposal there on the last page, the district commitment to this project would be $60,000, and then the Buildings and Grounds Department would take out of their own budget another $10,000. So that would come off of their budget they're already spending. Our $60,000 would come out of our reserve for operating capital, things we set aside for capital projects. We are planning to do some different, to use the ESSER funds for our technology purchases. So that'll leave some additional funds we can put towards the playground for next year.
And then just to make sure we're on the same page, operating capital is typically spent on equipment, not salaries. You know, there are some exceptions, but you know, it's kind of a different bucket of money compared to the personnel expenses that we had to make reductions for.
You have the general fund silo, and within the general fund, there are silos, again, for specific purposes, and this one is specifically for large equipment purchases.
Do we have any other large equipment things that are kind of like looming in the future that we're
putting off to do this?
Right.
No, not that I'm aware of. Like I said, we're just swapping out the playground into operating capital, so we can, then our student technology will come out of ESSER funds for a year. The rest of the capital plan for next year is going along as planned.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Derricks, he's had his hand raised.
Thank you. A lot of questions. So first, my first question that you could answer, could you please give me a cost on each one of the three designs?
Yes. So, option one, which would be just the playground assembly.
So that would be option two in our.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be the second picture. Would be a total of, just for the playground equipment, $50,553.
Just for the equipment. What's this total cost?
So the total cost would be the same. We just put that into that. So
$5,000.
5,000 off of the 91 is what it would be.
So it'd be 5,000 off of what again?
5,000 off the 91.
So off of 90,
So
we're looking at 87.
86,000 total.
If you want, we had another 5 for the fencing.
Yeah.
So add it back in there.
Yeah.
Plus fence. Okay, I asked this ahead of the meeting. I didn't get an answer, said you'd have numbers here, so I'm waiting to see the numbers.
Yep, okay, so then if you go to option number 3, that's where we go back to, that's the whole pour and play. That quote was 201,000.
So that's the third picture that we got?
Yep, of all the playground equipment, 201,787, that is with the poured surface. If we just did the playground equipment, just the equipment installation is 83,000. For that.
So could we do that with wood chips?
Yes, that, like I said, that's just the 83,000 is just for equipment, then you'd have, you know, a little bit more than the $3,000 for wood chips, because we'd be adding on, well, probably at that phase, if you added on, it'd probably still be around 3,000 or 4,000 for wood chips.
So if we were to do the big one with wood chips, our total district cost, or total cost of the playground would be what plus fence?
With fence, we're looking at just about $114,000
With fence.
with a $10,000 fence.
So 104,000 plus that fence, then, if we're gonna compare.
Yep.
All right, and then what's the other one?
The other one is the option 2, which is the recommendation for tonight, and that is the 50,
That's just the 2 towers, nothing else.
no, that'd be the 2 towers and the 4 swing sets.
Well, what's the
That
other
would
one?
be the first picture.
My first picture is 2 towers.
The first picture is without the swing set. That was the first quote he gave at the, was it 51,000?
No,
50,000.
50,000.
Well, I got them all here. I asked to have them explained. I've tried.
That one. That's option 2 that you're looking at right now.
Yeah, and that one is the proposal, the recommendation.
And that one was 86,000 plus fence.
No.
No. No, that one is playground equipment is $53,913.73. So it would be close to that 90,775
Plus fence.
plus fence, yes.
90,000 plus fence. And then the one without the swings.
The one without the swings, that was 50,000, so it would be 86,000. And then the last picture that you see there would be the 114,000.
Yeah, well, if you're gonna compare plus fence on each one, it's 104,000 plus fence.
Yeah.
So we're looking at 86,000, 90,000, or 104,000. And you're recommending the 90,000. So for 14,000 more, you're gonna have the whole big picture here. And I guess my next question then is, how much more would it cost us to add these other items at a later date if we went with the stripped down version? Is there extra cost besides the equipment, or, I mean, if you do it all at once, it's probably cheaper to do it all in one thing than it is.
I would assume so. You got your contractors there, you got your playground installers there doing it once.
Material costs are going up May 1st.
And
I understand that, so. And then I got another question. We got a playground at Jefferson, and I know it's not very modern. It's not real large. Has any thought been given to moving that over to Twin Bluff?
Yeah, we haven't talked about that. I'd be probably opposed to that just because of the, it takes time and money to take down that equipment and then, install it in the new location. Plus then Jefferson loses a playground that's highly valued in that neighborhood too.
Unless we look at options of other things, I'm trying to do my homework here. Mm-hmm. From what I'm hearing here, we're trying to come up with an extra $14,000 if we want to do the big one. I don't see any sense trying to if we're gonna do it, to go and scale it down. And we haven't talked about additional fundraising from the community or anything. This is pretty much the city of Red Wing and us trying to do this, and the Apex or whatever the kids raised.
The student fundraising.
I'm wondering how we could go about this. If we say we're gonna put in, if we did come to agreement, we'll put in this amount, this type of playground, but if we can raise an extra 20,000, we can put this one in. And I know you can't get the commitment on the cheaper equipment by May 1st if we're gonna follow that route, but I think we could very easily raise $20,000 in a short amount of time to get us to the bigger thing, but it might be harder to do if we've already committed to it, if we put out an option. So I want to see us get a playground here. This has gone on way too long, money or no money. We've neglected having a playground at that building ever since I've been on the board. So it's before that, when we went down to 5th grade, it should have been done way back then. So we need to figure out how to move this forward somehow. Thank you. I'll be done.
Jackie, is there an extra $14,000 in that fund too? No. Okay. So
Unfortunately, no.
okay. So that answers our question unless we
We do have reserves there, but it would take board approval.
Sure. Sure. Mr. Bryant, you've been waiting patiently.
Thank you. I think I can remember what I was gonna say, so. So far, the proposed new playground funding is fundraiser 25,000. I heard you say you've already raised over 25,000.
We have 25, yes.
And if I recall, our last meeting, we made, at the meeting or at the operations meeting, we talked about a goal by a certain date to try to raise so much money. I think that was in that June 1st to July 1st timeframe to give people time to raise some money on the playground. Because we weren't positive at the time if we were gonna do it this year or postpone it till next year based upon the funding. And by whether or not the city of Red Wing can fit it into their construction season. Since we live in Minnesota, we have spring, fall, summer, winter, and construction season, you know, the 5 seasons. So question first off, I have a couple, is consider Red Wing do it this year, the kind that they've talked about.
So this, they would do, this is a scaled down version. All it is putting in some drain tile. You know, there's not too much work involved as the original plan that we talked about.
Okay.
We're not putting in the concrete pad.
Right.
So yes, they would still be able to fit that in. They did reach out to me today and just asked where we were, and I told them we were having a discussion tonight.
Great.
So I would get back to them on that.
I think we can go forward tonight with something. I really do. The other thing is, I get the idea about the safety of the road and along there. I understand that. It's a 30-mile-an-hour zone. Unfortunately, not everybody follows the speed limit. There's a few of us that go slower than that, but I think with the roundabout there and the school, just in a way comes out to slow people down because traffic patterns, once you get into it like an area where everything is in front of you, on the side of you, people tend to slow down. Studies show, like on Highway 58 down there by Haker Campground, the road kind of just gets narrow and the trees around it, people just have a tendency to slow down. And let's hope that's the case as I continue to do it at the middle school. But there's no totally safe place for anything. And I know that the committee on the playground picked that spot because of those same reasons that you talked about. No matter what the funding is, whatever we do tonight, I would certainly hope that the playground fundraising efforts continue throughout our community to get to that goal of getting the playground bigger and shaped better and more accessible for students and children in the community. I think it's a great location, right in front of the school, like you said, because that's what Mr. Palmetier wished to have it there for the exact reasons that you talked about. So if we need an answer tonight, I'm willing to make a vote on it. I'm not, I'm in favor of the recommendation tonight. So that's enough for me.
Ms. Tower.
I just want to thank Alan and the operations committee and Alan, everybody that you've been working with to jump this and get it moving faster. It's very appreciated, and you can tell that you have a passion for it. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And also, I'd just like to make the motion. Can I do that?
Sure.
I move for the school district to allocate $70,000 toward the construction of a traditional playground at Twin Bluff School. And continue fundraising, but that's not in the motion. And then Alan, you can tell us how people can donate money to the fundraising of the playground after this.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I will second that.
All right. Motion made by Ms. Tower, seconded by Ms. Tift. Any other discussion?
Just to be clear, it's the proposal that you presented tonight. 60 plus 10.
Correct.
Okay.
I just want to make something quick. I walk all over town. I follow the rules. I abide by things, but you know how many times I'm almost hit by a car when I have the right of way, and even when I'm up on the sidewalk too. So I would just, I like your points made. Could we just maybe come up with like a pros and cons list to that section? And even just like if we have to like talk to our parents and stuff like that, just to kind of get everybody to know, because even though the things that Jim had said, you would hope that roundabout would kind of trigger some people to really focus, but that's not the case. And in my experience with walking with traffic, we have a small percentage of people who actually think of others. So I would just like to see like maybe a pros and cons with that being there, if it's not a problem.
The other thing is this thing you have in front of me here, if you can see it, people have got to learn to put them down. You know how many times I see driving to my workplace out of town, all of a sudden a car will go by me and their head's down and they're looking at something. It's like, come on, people. You know, you're right. People, you can't, you got to look out all the time for what the other people are doing. So.
Yeah, I think the fence was the kicker for me. Making sure that the fence is for sure going to be there kind of alleviated a ton of, okay, so if the ball goes rolling, it hits the fence.
Yeah.
Okay.
The motion on the table was made by Holly, seconded by Jennifer, to have the school district allocate $70,000 toward the construction of the traditional playground at Twin Bluff School. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we will start a roll call vote with Ms. Ostendorf.
Aye.
Ms. Tower?
Aye.
Ms. Tift?
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Ms. Buck?
Aye.
Mr. Derricks?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Passes 7-0. Yay.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Can't wait to go. Yes, sir.
now to follow up on this playground, is there any way we can come up with a plan on how we might try to see how we can add on to this with only funds raised in the community?
Yeah.
There's a couple ways to approach it. I think one would be if we could have a certain amount of funds raised by the middle of June, committed to add these other two items to the playground when they can be installed. And I'm thinking it'd take about $20,000 if you set this up right so it can be added on. I don't know what it'd get done. Another would be just to flat out do a fundraiser and see what the community could come up with for additional funding for additional playground equipment, and then come up with a plan for it. But I hope we don't just quit with this. I hope we try to follow up with a fundraising plan to do additional that has to come in. The district's putting in $70,000, which we should do. It is our school building. City of Red Wing's contributing, which I believe they should do because it'll benefit the whole community. But I think there's more money out there to put in a really nice addition to this initial start. But I'm glad we're on this. This will get in. hopefully it'll be in before school starts next fall, or at least sometime next fall. And thank you so much. And I guess my question is, what's the next step? Can we ask you to come back to us with options to add to this and what they would cost?
Well, I think, if I could just jump in, you know, Alan is gonna get going on ordering the equipment, so we meet the deadline, so we get it here as soon as possible and, you know, schedule the installers. I know Chris Palmetier's already been working with a group of people to do more fundraising. And so that's our intent, is to keep fundraising, to add some of the other equipment that's not included in this initial proposal.
I'm just looking at what we got here. I think it would take very little effort to raise another 20,000 to put in this full big design. I mean, it's just, but we're at a time constraint to make things happen.
If people are interested in donating, should they contact Chris Palmetier? Is that the?
Correct.
Okay.
I think they can also contact board member Derrick's too. He's got a passion for this. I think so.
The thing about it is, asking somebody to donate, they like to see what their money is going to
Yeah,
buy.
no, I agree with you.
So if we could show something of what this money could buy,
I know.
it'd be real easy. This is what the board approved. If we could raise $20,000 by some date, or 25 if it has to be, or whatever it is, this is what it will be.
It's gonna cost more than 20, I think, to get everything more in there.
Well,
So
his number here was for one, and the other was
that's
less
what,
than 20,000. And
They also-
fencing and everything's the same.
he also said 10 to 20,000 for fencing. He's got 10 in it. He's got need more chips if you want even more. So yeah, there is additional costs. And then if you order stuff after May 1st, he's talked about the 7% increase. So I agree with you. I'm just saying we have Mr. Palmetier and others, and you hit the nail on the head, you know, raising money.
Hey, Board Chair Bryant, how do we get it to be a school zone so that they lower the speed limit during school hours?
I think there is a school head sign there already, isn't there?
I think there is.
I don't think so.
Ooh. You know,
Is that a city council thing that we all have to walk on over together?
They have to petition the MnDOT to get that. Whether or not, I don't know if they can legally lower it to 20, like Wisconsin, you know, you can lower some stones over there. The school head, but it's been shown, people if they drive it all the time, they forget about what the signage is there and all that. They don't listen to it. The flashing lights is a bigger one that helps. The crosswalk signs in the middle of the road help. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there isn't, people run into houses too, and they're well off the road too, you know, but anything we can do to help it, make it a safer spot, I'm all for. I think we should.
I think it's safe to assume then that this will be an ongoing discussion, perhaps back at the operations committee for a phase 2, making sure we have all the equipment and everything that we need, and perhaps having somebody from the operations committee reach out to the city to see what other kind of signage or lights that we could put up there to make it as safe as possible. Nobody wants any sort of tragedy that happens there. So I think we all have that mutual goal. So we'll put it back on the operation committee to keep working on phase 2 and the fundraising. So thank you. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to see a playground there. Your dream come true, Arlen. Future topics and upcoming meetings. We have next Monday, we will have a workshop. We'll do that in a hybrid way as well. So if you can be here in this location, or are we going to have it elsewhere?
I'm planning on it here.
In this location here, if you can make it physically. If not, we'll see you hybrid. Other meetings are listed in our board packets, so I'll just call your attention to that. Anything else that anybody would like to highlight? I will let you know that I am signed up for the MSBA Phase 4, building a high-performing school board team, representing your community through policy and engagement. So this is Phase 4 of 4. So I've been through 1, 2, 3. So I'm looking forward to doing that. They do an excellent job. So if anybody ever wants to do Phases 2 or 3 and 4, I really highly recommend that. I also sent out to all of you an opportunity for an ACES training. And that's virtually. So if anybody's interested in that, you've got the link in your email. Anything else? All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn made by Jim,
Second,
seconded by Holly. We'll take a roll call, starting with Ms. Tower,
aye.
Ms. Tift,
Aye.
Mr. Bryant,
Aye.
Ms. Buck,
Aye.
Mr. Derricks,
Aye.
Ms. Ostendorf.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are adjourned at 8:08. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
So I got the meeting done a half hour earlier last time.
Jim, you get on the swings. Go play.